Greetings everyone, and welcome to what might be my final video if I manage to squeeze all my points into a workable time frame. What would potentially be my final video when it comes to saying goodbye to Borderlands 2 and what I hope from Borderlands 3. Borderlands 3 is actually out today, so I'm a bit behind schedule. I had hoped for these to be done by yesterday, but that didn't quite happen. You caught me actually here in Ultimate Vault Hunter mode. A leap that I have been, well, putting off for quite some long time because I want to stay in true Vault Hunter mode for various reasons. Like I said, this is the console version, PlayStation 4 version. My main character is on the PC version, which I don't have access to right now, and had that been the case, I would have done the entirety of this series on an OP10 character. But that didn't quite work out. The reason I'm here in Ultimate Vault Hunter mode is I wanted to talk about it. I want to talk about the precedent that it set and how it really shaped Borderlands into something that really was not intended to be. The original Borderlands also got a level cap increase beyond 50 with the addition of General Knox DLC. But with it, no difficulty spike was introduced alongside with it. Playthrough 2 kind of remained the same as it always had been, and things carried out on from there. With Ultimate Vault Hunter mode, however, yes, of course we got more skill points to spend, but like I said in my previous video, out of each and every skill tree you had a lot of skills that were totally useless. You would never go for this skill, and this is going to be further highlighted in Ultimate Vault Hunter mode. You wouldn't really care about Resurgence, you wouldn't really care about the wind. So out of the entire tree, you only needed these two, and probably follow through. And if you're full out melee, you'd go for Many Must Fall, although you'd struggle to get it to trigger constantly in Ultimate Vault Hunter mode. So skills kinda helped, although not really. Because in true Vault Hunter mode, you could be a specialist and kind of either go for sniping, either go for melee, but sadly you couldn't get kunai to trigger with either one, so that was bad. So maybe up to the point where I believe 57, the level which I'm at currently, is the exact point where you can start getting 2 capstones simultaneously. So you could get Death Blossom, of course commonly known as kunai, with Many Must Fall or Critical Ascension. And had they just given people 7 more skill points, that would have been just that. Maybe a little bit more, but the point I'm trying to make is the more skill points we got, and this has been further highlighted now that the level cap has been increased to 80, there are no longer anything called builds. Every character is the same. The skills that you go for, especially on 0, are pretty much a given. Everybody specs in the sniper tree exactly the same. They get headshot and not optics. They usually opt for killer and not precision. They get bore, they get 1 shot 1 kill, and then they spend whatever skill points they can on the rest of the skills, preferably into kill confirm because it can potentially yield you more damage, to get to Critical Ascension. Nobody really goes for at-1 with the gun. Nobody really goes for velocity, nobody goes for precision, nobody goes for optics. So you have 4 skills that do not increase damage, and you really need to maximize your damage output in Ultimate Vault Hunter mode. So there wasn't any variety when it comes to builds. Nobody cared about builds anymore. Every character was the exact same. So that was one negative side. And the difficulty spike that they introduced is absolutely horrendous. It clearly shows that they did not think this through. Enemies have a lot more health, I believe 4 times more health to be precise. On top of that, enemies, of course, as everybody who's ever played Borderlands 2 knows, have health regeneration, which I find particularly stupid. There were already healer-type units in the game. You had surveyors, of course they typically heal bots, and they restore their health, and you had the witch doctors from the Hammerlock DLC. So there were already healer-type units. I think there were like medics and whatever, but that's beside the point. So you had healer-type units in the game, and now every single enemy, no matter how little of a schmuck they are, can regenerate their health. This, of course, was made further noticeable with the introduction of OP8, where enemies could heal through your dots. You could inflict fire damage over time upon an enemy, and their health regeneration is so massive that your dot does nothing. This all ties into what I said in my very first video about RPGs, how they are not really planned. They make one general system and they keep adding on top of it without revisiting their decisions, their initial decisions, because they think they might mess up the experience for normal mode or something. This is going to be very well demonstrated with this Ruthless Willy Rot. Even though my gear is level 50, but I assure you the experience would not be that much different had my gear been up to par, especially since now that you're playing Ultimate Vault Hunter mode fresh and you have to like re-pick up guns and not use the ones that you've already farmed, which is going to be my next point, which is farming. You're going to end up using a lot of green guns and guns that are not optimized, and this is going to be a very, very, very painful experience. So this highlighted and multiplied the problem that was already present in Borderlands, in the sense of, like I said, how bad decisions were made in the design very early on, and they were not revisited as the game aged. So in a sense, when a guy like this is going to regenerate his health, but bosses don't, and raid bosses don't, this is very weird. Like, how could a normal enemy regenerate his health without any healer type unit supporting it? And when you have a healer type unit supporting it, forget it. You can never get any damage done. You really have to go for the healer first, which could be like a tactical thing, but overall it was very, very annoying. But like I said, bosses and raid bosses do not regenerate health unless it's like built into their design, like Hateracks. So that was very weird. I don't believe that was intended for Borderlands to be like that until they came up and conjured this Ultimate Vault Hunter mode from nothing. The pearlescent weapons that they introduced were completely stupid, most of which were super inferior to even the uniques of the game, stuff that you got as mission rewards and quest rewards. So you had no reason to farm from them other than like to put them on a shelf and like in a trophy room, like, oh my god, I got this gun to drop, but it's actually very, very bad. Most of the stinkers are pearlescents in this game, and so that was no help. The playstyle that you have to play Ultimate Vault Hunter with is very, very restrictive. I distinctly remember where like I played the entirety of normal mode without ever using slag. Like I use slag ever so rarely. In True Vault Hunter mode, when I started going for the challenges, and by the way, follow up on that, this stupid thing is actually glitched. Oh, it's at the top. As you can see, it says negative, which is a follow to what I talked about in my previous video when it came to challenges, and it's actually stopping me from getting the trophy because I actually got Jenkins to spawn in the meantime. And so now the only thing standing between me and the final trophy in order to get my platinum for this game is this stupid challenge, which is bugged. So in True Vault Hunter mode, when I started paying attention to this, I noticed that, okay, fine, this slag thing, you slag enemies and they take increased damage. So I distinctly remember at a time in Wildlife Exploitation Preserve, while I was playing in True Vault Hunter mode, I didn't have any good corrosive gun on me. I had like a very stable gear set that I've been playing with for like 2 or 3 levels already, which was a Jacob sniper, and I believe one shock shotgun and a fire submachine gun or something like that. And I didn't have a good corrosive weapon, so the way that I used slag is that I would slag the loaders that appeared in Wildlife Exploitation, because you really needed all the elements there. Well, maybe not shock. Shock is very stupid in Borderlands 2. Maybe it would help, of course, against the stalkers. But I would slag the loaders and I would kill them with my shock, fire, or non-elemental Jacob sniper. And that's the way I used shock. So in a way, Borderlands was not restricting you in the way that you could play the game, and you could do any which thing you want. You had the skill sets, you had the items, the necessary stuff in the game to allow you to play in any which way you want. Which is why you could get away with using underpowered skills, like, for example, be like water, and maybe even rely on resurgence for healing, even though that would be stupid. But when it comes to Ultimate Vault Hunter mode, no, you have to go full out. You have to min-max your build. You have to take on enemies in the most effective way possible, otherwise it wouldn't work. And you have to slag everything. Everything. If you don't slag an enemy, you're just not able to kill it. If you're going to be able to kill like the most pathetic ones, like pup skags and these bullymong, babies, whatever, anything other than that, you'd find a super hard time killing. And I'm going to demonstrate this briefly here. So, as you can see, now of course, like I said, my gear is level 50, so it's not like super optimal, but everybody knows what I'm talking about. The Pimpernel is a super powerful weapon, and you saw how much it struggled to, how many shots it took to down that bully rot. And the Pimpernel and sniper rifles in general were designed to be one-shot, one-kill weapons, at least on zero. I'm not spec'ing to one-shot, one-kill, but you get the point. And this is further highlighted by their ammo pool. If you're used to unloading on things with submachine guns, and instead of killing something in like 10 shots, you take 30 in Ultimate Vault Hunter mode, that's not going to be a very big deal for you. You wouldn't feel much of a difference. But for guns that are one shot, one kill, like snipers, like maybe shotguns, rocket launchers, that stuff is very noticeable. You find that the game starts feeling weird, like, why the hell am I headshotting this guy and he's not dying? And the answer was always in slag. You have to slag everything. Once you slag something, because slag got like increased usage, it now did triple damage instead of double, and it lasted longer, and you got increased weapon swap speed in order to slag and switch. But slag is a super not interesting element to use. It's like a prerequisite. It's a wall that's standing between you and your damage, and it's not fun. It is absolutely not fun. This exposed the game's flaws, where certain characters are able to apply slag consistently while others can't. Zero, for example, has absolutely no way to apply slag. And his Death Blossom doesn't guarantee a slag to be applied. It sometimes does, sometimes doesn't. I believe it happens far less frequently in Ultimate Vault Hunter mode. And because he's so reliant on slag, Of course, he does have Deathmark to help him along, but he's so reliant on slag that you absolutely had to carry a slag grenade. So this further restricted your playstyle. Either you had to keep switching to a gun and coming back, or you would just deploy a slag grenade and call it a day. So, enemies have more health, okay fine, but they have health regeneration. Doesn't really make sense. Healer type units in the game were made kind of redundant. Bosses felt less unique, because regular enemies regenerate health while bosses don't. Playstyles were extremely restrictive. You pretty much had to rely on moxie weapons for healing. Your shields would go in an instant. And you had to constantly rely on health gate, which is something I haven't touched upon until now. Health gate is a concept that when your health is lowered down to like 30% or 40, I'm not sure of the exact number, that is when the exclamation mark starts showing up next to your health bar. You are kind of invincible and you cannot die for, I believe, like a second or a second and a half or whatever. And that is called Healthgate. It was a system implemented by the developers to stop you from dying in a single hit. I kind of think that rocket launchers defy that law, because I usually get downed instantly when there's one of those Blaster Goliaths or RPG loaders nearby, but I don't know, I'm not sure about that. Nobody cares anymore, like Borderlands 3 is out and nobody's here to talk about Borderlands 2 mechanics. But still, because of that, once you get that to trigger, you have to heal quickly above health gate to get it to trigger again, so that the next shot again does not kill you. And because of that, having more health is detrimental to you. You don't want to have more health, because that would make healing above health gate that much more difficult. If I am 0 and I rely, for example, on Innervate here, and maybe a little bit of healing from my comm, which is 10%, if I don't have very high health, that could potentially heal me back above health gate. If I do have a lot of max health, then healing back above health gate is going to be a problem. And that is, again, the way that Borderlands highlights its own flaws. Ultimate Vault Hunter mode multiplied all of that by 10, where if you could get away with a little bit more health in true Vault Hunter mode, even then it wouldn't be really recommended. You absolutely had to minimize your health in Ultimate Vault Hunter mode. And all of this was counterintuitive. All of this was again, very stupid and clearly not intended. Ammo prices. Dear Lord, if you wanted to buy ammo prices were absolutely insane, especially on OP8. All your max cash of like 99 million will not be enough, I believe, to buy you rocket launcher ammo. You have to go back to normal mode if you wanted to buy ammo. Many things became impossible. The Hoplite Shield, which is a legendary turtle shield, which typically subtracts from your max health, on OP8, which is like a continuation of UVHM, on OP8 it would subtract more than the max health that you have. Please don't try to tell me that this stuff was planned by Gearbox. It clearly wasn't. They just cranked up numbers mindlessly without paying attention and didn't care what happened to the game. The game only survived because, again, it's an RPG, and RPGs always have a lot of different tools that you can use to overcome almost any situation, but none of it is planned. You had Dexy, the Invincible, which is the secret raid boss of Hammerlock DLC, which no longer spawns enough crit spots for you to even kill it, so the boss became unkillable on OP8 difficulty. All of that, again, and people started trying to like reconcile, oh, why, look at this build, I can actually play without relying on moxie weapons, and they would go out of their way to try and demonstrate this. And everybody, of course, especially the casuals who did not care much about like looking up on YouTube and reading up in forums, they all went with Sandhawk B. They all went with sham shields and Norfleets, wherever they could find them, and it was, or they could save it at them, which I'm going to of course elaborate on in my next point. And UVHM was just a disaster. It was just a nightmare. It should never have been this way. It was clearly badly planned. Gearbox released the UVHM update hastily. They didn't really, again, revisit how this changes things, what mechanics are affected, what it should do. It was just a bad experience. And it made Borderlands into something it really wasn't intended to be, which is a very difficult game. Why the hell is the game so difficult? It never used to be that way. It used to be just don't be an idiot, just be mindful of what you're doing, be a little bit tactical, watch where barrels are, pay attention to the order you kill your enemies in, and that was it. But having enemies become impossible to kill if they're not slagged, and you have to slag everything, and most of the guns don't work, it was just not fun at all. I'm going to transition over here just to check if I forgot anything, just to avoid having to edit this further later on.
And I disappear, a ghost amidst the combat, preparing to strike. I vanish.
So, I'm going to splice in that clip of me fighting these bandits just to show how easy it was to break your shield in UVHM and how everything was reliant on Healthgate. And in kind of like to re-summarize, the bad thing about UVHM was that it, just like I said with raid bosses, it highlighted everything that was wrong about Borderlands. It didn't highlight the good stuff. It highlighted that there are guns that are way much more powerful than others. For example, this Pimpernel here in my hand is clearly one of the absolute best snipers in the game. If you're using another sniper, you're just giving yourself a hard time. Using a Volcano, for example, over a Pimpernel is just a testament that you do not know the game as well. You have, again, the instance where the differences between characters were highlighted even further, and it was obvious how much of an advantage someone like Salvador, who can dual-wield guns, had over the other Vault Hunters. And like I said, it just highlighted all the bad things about the game instead of the good ones. It highlighted how useless shields were, and how stupid it was if you're not gauged to play around with a shock weapon. You don't need shock. You just slag an enemy, and that is your shock right there. So again, everything that was bad in Borderlands 2 was highlighted exponentially by UVHM, and almost none of the good things were highlighted. Playstyles became more restrictive, builds became more similar, everything was Healthgate, no need for shock, everything is slag, characters have it easy, characters have it hard, characters can raid, characters have easy time raiding. It was just a mess. And because, again, the reason behind this in my mind is that it wasn't initially planned. Enemies were not meant to have quadruple health. Enemies were not meant to have health regeneration. Shields were not meant to be broken as easily. Shock wasn't meant to be as stupid. Slag wasn't meant to be used this widely. Everything was just not planned. Gearbox just released the UVHM update very hastily, and it was kept alive by, I could say, a select few of the community that actually liked it. A lot of people did not. The jump from true Vault Hunter mode to Ultimate Vault Hunter mode was very stupid, very oppressive to most players who didn't see Borderlands in that light. Borderlands to them was a game of fun, and it was probably about farming, which is going to be my very next point, but it was never about such difficult tasks. Like I said, you didn't get that much difficulty in the game up until the point where Voracitus was introduced. You had more things along the lines of annoying, like Circles of Slaughter, like I said, but nothing too difficult. But Ultimate Vault Hunter mode just threw that all out the window, and all of a sudden Borderlands is this game about min-maxing your build, getting the absolute best gear, because green guns, blue guns don't really work anymore. You had to utilize uniques, legendaries, stuff that actually is overpowered. A few purples, of course, like a regular Sniper still works probably just fine, but you're far better off using a Pimpernel, of course. And that was not fun. But probably the absolute worst thing about jumping to Ultimate Vault Hunter mode is the issue that all of your gear became obsolete. I got this shield, and as you can see, it is much better than this blockade here that took me ages farming the Ancient Dragons of Destruction to get, which is a much more difficult task than simply opening up a chest or killing a no-name bandit and getting this to drop. But as you can see, this has much better stats. And so with that came the issue that you had to refarm all your gear. And I'm going to elaborate on this in my next point, but that was probably the worst possible thing whenever they introduced new levels and new difficulties, that you had to redo everything. And that is going to be my next point, which I'm going to transition over to.